Hello, welcome back to the Pop Marketing Podcast. My name is Joe Cox, still the Pop Marketer, and we've had just like slam dunks all in a row. It's 2023. You know, it's a so-so year so far, but as far as like podcast guests go, like I could not be more happy. And finally, I've known these guys for a long time. I've talked to you guys for a long time outside of, recording it. But I'm super delighted to be able to have both of you on it. And what are we going to talk about today? Well, like in the world of pop marketing, I tend to find, I found really early that the idea of toys and kids entertainment was not only like kind of an interest to me always that I never grew out of, i.e. like Adult Swims and everything, the adults, the Peter Pan syndrome, but also that I found like all these awesome insights of things going on in the kid space and understanding not just Gen Z, but even younger, and understanding, what goes on in a kid's head and how they talk about products and brands and celebrities and marketing, and finding some really cool insights that help me as a marketer for any product, So today on the show, we have Ryan Scofield, Terence Burke, both from KidSay. And guys, welcome to the show. How you both doing?
Woo-hoo.
Yeah, that's right. Same. Well, listen, KidSay, just so we can get it kind of out here early so everybody kind of has context of who are these guys and what are they talking about. Can we chat it up a little bit? Can you tell us a little bit about the work you do at KidSay and kind of what makes it, the space that you're in, the clients that you have, and like what makes it different than other kind of research? Even kids different than other kid research spaces.
I'll jump in there on that one, Ryan. So we've been around since the turn of the century. Oh my God, we've been doing this a long time in the field of kids, and it started. Our founder Bob Reynolds he was working in the field of school fundraising, and he had what I think is a genius idea. Schools are in need of cash infusions all the time for, extra computer lab and a field trip and scholarship, whatever it may be. He recognized that kids are filled with information about their lives, and they like to talk about their lives. And so we use the school network as our key differentiator. We get real kids. When you come to us, you're talking to real kids, because we access kids and have for over 2 decades mainly through our school network in a way that lets you know that you're getting America's kids, right? We poll them 4 times a year of 8 to 15-year-olds, survey them 4 times a year, 5 to 7-year-olds twice a year. We do a family report in there as well. And we really are taking a snapshot of who kids are, what their preferences are, what their aspirations are, what their dreams are. We're not selling them anything. We're not doing anything other than engaging them and hearing what they have to say. We've been laying those photos down for 20-something years, right? We've got a way to say, hey, here's what's happening right now. But more importantly, because we've been seeing where those photos are, hey, here's what's coming next, right? We're kid experts. We know what it is. We're hearing from them all the time. And so, that's just really in a nutshell what we've been doing at KidSay. What did I miss, Ryan?
Well, the people that we're serving day to day, anybody who's in the kids media space, anybody who is really trying to understand where, as Terence said, where kids are going next. And so when you talk about the Disney, the Nickelodeon, all the major toy companies and many license holders and so on and so forth, if they're trying to connect to that audience, that's who we're working with.
Yeah, it's a pretty deep. Well, it's a smaller world than people might think. That world, right? Like it's made of some bigger players, for sure. But if they make toys, if they make entertainment, kids entertainment, chances are you're working with them or have worked with them in the past.
Right.
So I can't wait for us at Pop Marketing Podcast to kind of get some freebies from you.
Yeah.
And some, right. It usually costs. This is why I have them on, folks, so I can get the latest and greatest from the trend tracker. So what about you two? What did you go into what's origin stories for both of you? Like, how did you get into the world of kids research and I guess after that many years of being in it, especially for you, Terence, is like, is it what you thought it would be? You know?
So I'm an educator by training, therapeutic education, clinical team, kids who need extra support. And a friend of mine, I gave a call to a friend of mine who was working for a major cookie company, biscuit company. And they were relating a story of, we just pulled in a bunch of kids for a new product. We had 5-year-olds for 90 minutes for a new cookie concept, and it was a total disaster. Can you tell me what went wrong? And I just started laughing. I'm like, first of all, they didn't even have a cookie, right? They're talking to 5-year-old kids. They didn't even have a product. They had a concept, idea strain, and they had them for 90 minutes. So like they knew nothing about kids. So I went into the litany of, well, you have to understand the developmental level, right? You have to understand the way they process the world. You have to understand that you need, it's always valuable to have something tangible, but for a 5-year-old, it's essential. And at that age, particularly with a food item, you're going to get it from their reaction, not necessarily from anything they say about it. Do they reach for a second cookie? That'll be your key thing. So she's like, do you think you could come in and tell my boss this? And I was like, yeah, I'd be happy to. And so that's where I got started a long time ago in the realm of, so in the world of education, where I'm one of many people who are steeped in knowledge of kids and their development and how that changes and the influence that they had, it's like in the land of the blind, the man with one eye's, king. I was king, right? Because I walked into a place that forgot, I was a kid, so I must know about kids. No, your brain has changed so significantly. And the cultural prism through which kids are expressing that kiddom has changed so significantly. You can't really know what they're all about until you talk to them, to you're in their world, to you're in their space, and then you filter it through your knowledge, your experience, etc. So that's my background and how I got into the field.
Yeah, and I joined KidSay in 2007, so about 7 years into the trend tracker, being in production, and I actually started on as freelance. And as I was working through that, became really familiar with the data. And I walked into Bob's office one day, our founder, and I said, "Hey, I think we can grow this thing bigger than it actually is right now." And so that's what we've been working on for the past, it's 16 years now, which I cannot believe, but we have been, and Terence can attest to this, revising and refining the product over the years, and expanding capabilities and just figuring out how can we serve our clients better, and how can we talk to people like Joe Cox to get the message out and make sure that everyone knows that we exist. So.
Well, it's too bad because I like to have you as like my little secret of like you need to be can't just be telling everybody about it. No, I probably utilize your tracker and the bits and pieces I get just because I know you, and information that comes from that tracker more than most any other tool that I have. And it's not just for, weirdly enough, it's not just for clients that have kid products, right? Like it's like I do a lot of that work, but it's not just for that. So I was really excited to have you on because not only is there a lot that any brand marketer can kind of get from what's going on with kids, because guess what? 5 years from now, somebody who's 10 is going to be 15. Somebody who was 15 is going to be 20. And if you've been in it as long as we have, as long as I have, you see these waves, right? Like yes. Millennials were so cool, and now we're it's old, now it's like they're family guys, and it was that MTV generation where it was like everybody was trying to get your attention, and now the new kids on the block, it's everybody's talking Gen Z, and then it'll be the next, and then it'll be the next. So I find it really insightful to get an idea of what's going on in the heads of, say, a 9-year-old in the U.S., because I think it is as close as we can possibly get in the marketing world to future telling. Like, future telling is the worst. Future, like, I don't want any part of it. I never want to be able to, like, try to, like, there's too many factors. But I will say one place that I usually go to say, well, it's a good idea of which way things are going, is just how are kids utilizing media? How are kids, what is going on? How are they prioritizing goals in their lives and things they want to become? And you can really kind of look at that and tell the future. Would you argue that? Do you see the same kinds of things? You've seen it now. The kids you were interviewing when you started, both of you are now have families, right? So do you see those same kind of waves and same kind of insight?
Yeah, what's really fascinating for me is how much in certain categories, like let's take social media, for example. I was around when kids were first telling us about, I looked in the data, and one of the cool things about looking through the data is not always necessarily what's on the top. It's that kind of stuff that's bubbling up from underneath. That's where Ryan particularly is really great at sifting through that kind of data and identifying, oh, hey, Terence, keep a look on this. I saw this one deep in the data. And so, 20 years ago when Zanga first arrived on a favorite website of kids, I'm like, what is going on here? And then, oh, look at this. This is this kind of idea of kids connecting to each other. Well, we know that how important kids' friendship is, and how particularly once they get into that tween space and then early teens, how that becomes a shift in the way they define and identify themselves and really experience themselves of being and becoming in the world, right? So this is a place that I recognize right away. Ooh, that's going to be really interesting to see what happens there. And certainly, we know that the teen girl space, because in general, girls will come to that communicative, collaborative friendship building earlier than boys will. Boys will look at it more through the activity that they're doing, the sport or the club, to get that camaraderie, that same kind of element they want. Girls will do it through, at first, with the relationship being predominant, and then the activity second to them. So this idea of, this thing, Zango, what is this? And so sure enough, we see that, and then along comes Friendster, and then comes MySpace, and then comes Facebook, and every single one of them have created a wave pattern that is this cultural moments, which is the one speaking to these kids right now, to their in their moments kiddom, but to their essential need to connect as kids. So being able to look at the data and see how those shifts happen, how in one social media space, once there is a critical mass, then they can abandon the old one, the one that they had been linked to because all their friends were there. Once that new one comes up and has critical mass, then this other one can drop off and they can move to it. And that's where we're at right now with TikTok and YouTube and YouTube Shorts and all of them saying, oh, how do we tie into this eternal need for kids to have a place that they can connect, that they can share, that they can have fun with each other, that they can play in this new space, right? It's just new playground. It's not anything different, right? It's the same essential kiddom, but in a new way. And so that's where one of the cool things about doing it for a while is noticing some of those patterns and being alert to them and knowing where in the data to look, like what age and gender group break bans and break social media and break gaming, et cetera, and be hyper vigilant on that to see what the changes are happening.
Yeah, the good news sorry, I was just going to say the good news is that kids are just humans. And like the human part doesn't change, which thank God. Thank you, please. Because that's always where I have to go to in order to kind of be like, okay, Threads is coming out. Like, it's another thing. How do we do? It's really to go back to say, okay, we're humans. So what do we like to do? And what at that age group, what are we into? And you're going to probably be into those same things on your online persona versus your offline persona, no matter what. And Terence, I also thought it was really interesting. You were saying, well, girls tend to start to build those relationship bonds earlier, and guys and boys will do it through activities. And it's funny, as I worked on, this is a perfect example. I worked on a food brand over the pandemic, and we were seeing data saying the exact same thing as adult men were having problems because most of their kind of bonding was done over events such as sports, gone, cookouts, gone, getting together and working on stuff in the garage, gone. Like all those things that were kind of the relationship things where it felt women weren't having the exact same issue according to the data, because they were able to hop on and kind of get those conversations moving in places like Zoom and different places where guys just weren't feeling comfortable. So once again, human stuff, which I'm thankful for. But I want to talk about the cool stuff. Ryan, did you have anything to add on what you've seen?
No, it's interesting because when you look back at the pandemic, for example, that was like a aha moment of it's not just about social media to socialize anymore. Where, as Terence mentioned, girls are predominantly the ones using social media, although boys are absolutely there too. Girls are discovering and finding those things. During the pandemic, there were some aha moments about boys where we saw boys are now, their social media is essentially gaming, in the gaming space. And so are they talking to each other, on the headset, or are they chatting, and we saw the proliferation of different slang come about, poggers and AFK and things like that that were very gaming type slang words that would drip into broader kid culture at that point as a result. And the other thing I did want to mention is now, when it used to be Zanga and then MySpace and then Friendster and Facebook and all those and so on, it was, what's the new one that's going to come dominate? It was about one social media, right? And the environment now, obviously, as we know, is that many people have multiple social media or apps and platforms that they're utilizing, some greater than others, of course. And when you look at YouTube, especially with kids, because it is such a dominant platform, it's one that has kind of lasted as others have kind of come and gone. So
what's about, and let's go into it, because there's no stopping it. It's like the social side of this thing is especially the online side of building those relationships and entertainment. Because I had Saturday morning cartoons, and the same kinds of things are there. It's just so it's just splintered and all over YouTube. So let's get into that. Why do you think YouTube has had lasting power when it comes to the kid audience? Like, where now I'm seeing all those shows that kind of started on YouTube now getting multi-million-dollar deals. Like you have the Coco Melons, and that started on YouTube and now have like grown into the streaming worlds and being bought up by places. But what it does make me wonder, because YouTube has been there since I think 2008. It's been there for a minute, right? Like it's lasted. Why so with the kid generations?
So one of the things is that because in classic marketing, you have your demographic age ranges. I'm now in the 60 plus, that goes on for ad infinitum, right? But so that's a big Megillah of a market. Mm-hmm. But in a kid market, you have to have little niches, because again, the developmental changes and the impact of age and gender are so crucial to understanding and reaching them. And YouTube was a place that had such a wide spectrum of ability to find those niche places where kids could find the channel that's for me. They're speaking my language. They're doing these things and in a way that I really like and enjoy. And it's done with by unleashing the creative instincts of the world population to be able to find whatever that niche is, right? So it perfectly said a 5-year-old, an 8-year-old, and now granted, YouTube will tell you, you're right, 13 and under, and Joe, you alluded to this in previous conversations we've had that, they recognize that, we can't market, we're not trying to market, but the reality is that kids are watching, right? Their YouTube Kids version of that is a really helpful, divider in that space for kids of that. But the reality is, the old cliche that came out of World War I, again, not to say that I'm a 60 plus older guy and I'm referencing World War I, but once the GI, once he's been to Paris, how are you going to keep him down on the farm? Well, once a kid has been to YouTube, how are you going to keep him on YouTube Kids?
He's out of the bottle. Right? Right?
Exactly,
like it's already, it's gone. And traditional broadcast is gone. It's got like, I want it now, and I want what I want to watch now.
What I want to watch, yeah. And YouTube was able to hit all those little niche ages. The 8-year-old girl who's different than the 10-year-old girl, who's different than the 12-year-old girl, who's different than the 14-year-old girl, and all of them are different than the 8, 10, 12, 14-year-old boy. Each of them are going to find their place on YouTube, and YouTube delivers that fun aspect. And Ryan is the one who's really focused on the info part. Ryan, why don't you talk about YouTube and what it delivers as far as info for kids and the way they're using it?
Yeah, in terms of discovery of new play patterns. Obviously, we all know it's a search engine at this point, right? YouTube's a search engine, and so it's how do I do this? How do I do that? The first, for that matter, who should I have on? Who's the best players to have in FIFA? My FIFA game this year. Who should I put on my create your own team in Madden? Those kinds of questions, or whatever the game of the moment is. Those kinds of questions of how can I, especially for boys, how do I dominate this game? And then so not just obviously learning how to play, but just watching in general and consuming the play. And so you look at those types of trends, and of course kids can learn how to make a burrito or whatever the case may be. It's kind of lunchtime, and I was thinking about that myself. So, but anyway, I don't know why I said burrito. But all that to say, there's so much information available there, and entertainment. So it could be infotainment, but a lot of it is entertainment, and in that way you see like the Mr. Beast type channels really making it big. And as Terence mentioned, there's so many channels out there on YouTube, and there's really something for everyone. Mr. Beast currently seems to be the point of where the kind of rallying point where everybody's like, okay, I'll watch that, and including parents at this point, right? Because it's so entertaining. But kids still have many, the number of favorites that we get when we ask, what's your favorite YouTube channel on YouTube? It's enormous. Every kid's got a favorite YouTube channel. When we ask the same question about TikTok, they have a really hard time naming that. Because it's a source of entertainment, quick hit, short form. But they're not able to identify the creator, the channel, whatever the language is per platform.
And it's almost to the point where the algorithm's so good that they don't need to, right? Like it's feeding up what they want. And it's like, I don't need to follow anybody. It's just the stuff just magically ends up like it's the entertaining stuff. And I'm not as worried about the creator or who it is coming from. It's just an always on channel of the cool stuff that I like. And it gets there fast, but it's really interesting. One thing that I will say that I want people to take away from this too is you have to understand that if you're anywhere in our realm of not being a kid, and if you were in the 80s, 70s, 80s, 90s, we were fed what we got. right? Like, and I try to tell people this, the way that popular culture is not going to be what it is in the future. Just because we had 3 channels, or you had maybe cable, and you got fed what you got fed, and you liked it and loved it, and not only did you get fed what you got fed, but you also were like, I only have one Saturday morning. I better be up early, and I'm going to get my cereal, and I'm going to watch this span of shows just made for me. And half of them are horrible, and the other half are kind of okay, but that's what we had. So, my childhood was a lot of Jetsons, a lot of Flintstones, a lot of, Hanna-Barbera stuff that I wasn't around when they got made, but that was the stuff on TV, Bugs Bunny, and all of those pieces that I got because it's like I didn't have a lot of choice. And now, to your point, I think people are always surprised. Clients are always surprised if you take them to like maybe a VidCon, right? And say, you're going to see lines wrapped around the building for a person that you've never seen or heard of. And you're going to be like, wow, I'm losing it. And you're not losing it. It's just the idea of celebrity is it's different, right? Like you don't have the Elvises or the Michael Jacksons or the people that are just like exorbitantly giant. It's more broken up, and YouTube has helped create that understanding of mid celebrity or mini celebrity, and through that, and I think it's really interesting because Terence, to your point, that means it's tough for a marketer because a lot of times it's like, well, I know that I watch this stuff. I know who's cool. And now it's really hard because you can't go off your gut. You can't. It's kind of like when I always say the pilot is flying blind, like when they have to trust their gauges more. So when you're flying in the dark, right. And to me, it feels like you can be tricked sometimes to think, well, I got kids. I know what's going on. To me, I have to trust the data more and more now just because of how splintered everything is. And I just don't consume necessarily the same content. I don't know.
To jump on a couple of the metaphors that you used there that really are applicable to the kid space. Let's take that pilot one. The majority of time a plane is actually off course because of all the variables, the wind and the air pressure and all that. You have to continue to see the data to then get yourself corrected. And so one of the things that we at KidSay really believe that we're helping our clients do, and we have a track record of them coming back to us all the time, is we need that data so that we can course correct, so that we can see, right? We can't make the assumptions. We have to make some, obviously, because we're planning 12 months out or 8 months out or 18 months out, whatever it may be, our product launch or our content development. Yet we're always going to listen to that data to see, so where are they now? So when we want to engage them and let them know about our product and what's the lingua franca on that site, we need to be aware of that. So there's that one piece. The other thing that you said, Joe, that I think was really apt was about being fed. And to tie that back into the difference between TikTok and YouTube in one way, TikTok is an array of snacks, right? But YouTube can provide not only the snack, but I'm going to sit down and engage that longer piece from this content creator because they film me, right? They're going to film me. They're not just going to give me a tasty hit. They're going to film me with something that I really enjoy, want to know, learn, etc. And that's an advantage that YouTube certainly has over TikTok in the world of kids.
Yeah, YouTube is really interesting, and seeing the difference between TikTok and YouTube. And I see that same thing. I think you have to really realize, I do understand that TikTok does have some utility. There are some utility purposes, and that's growing. But really, YouTube is that the key there is that marketers and product makers and the IPs, everybody has to understand that YouTube is a multifaceted kind of tool set in a kid's space. right? Like it's not only where they're going to learn how to do that new skill or something that they're kind of interested in and look it up, like you said, the search engine, but it's also going to be the place where they're passive, for entertainment. So you have to be careful on making wide assumptions that it's just one thing, because it might play multiple, a Swiss Army knife, let's say, of different utilities for a kid, and it might serve different purposes for a 7-year-old versus a 10-year-old or an 11-year-old, right? As they're learning to search more. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. Is kids aren't even supposed to be on social media, so like they're not on it. So why would we be talking about it? Because these channels have made it very clear that if you're a kid, you can't start an account, you can't be on there. The question is are they on it? Like a TikTok, but Instagram.
Yeah, they're on it.
Yeah. I think I mentioned this before, but 5 to 7-year-olds, actually not just the kids themselves, because that would be like, okay, maybe it's aspirational, but actually 5 to 7-year-olds moms are telling us, yes, they are on TikTok platform using it alone, as well as kind of co-viewing with mom. And the interesting thing about the scale to which they're actually on that platform. So there are social media platforms made specifically for kids. Zigazoo, I know, is one of them, supposed to be for the under 13 crowd. But Messenger Kids, a Meta app, right, is made specifically for that audience to really provide that context of safety and control and all those sorts of things. Kids are on TikTok as much with parents and without parents as they are on Messenger Kids. So that's 5 to 7-year-olds, mind you. So when you talk about, as they get older, not wanting to go back once they've seen, Paris, but
right.
That context is absolutely in place. And, of course, we know anecdotally that, kids are consuming those short form videos on regular YouTube, which, I think you said earlier, it's like they're grooming for for TikTok, right? So they're not going to go back. And there is this interesting, variable also of like, that I've been particularly personally interested in recently is like, how does that affect their dopamine? Right. And their ability to focus on more long-term things, whether it be in the classroom or whether it be at other areas of life, so.
Yeah, this is where I get to, and I want to make sure everybody understands. It's like, we're just saying what the data is showing. And like, that's right. The conversation that needs to happen first. And that's why I'm so glad that you guys are around. And that KidSay is kind of putting this information out there, because whether it's a problem or not or whatever, there's something coming out of the mouths of the platform saying, "Oh, we don't want kids. We don't want them on here." And then there is a huge amount, whether people want to admit it or not, of the kids that are on these channels that are sort of not built with the same safety parameters, because it's really hard to do. And that opens up, of course, a lot of, as a parent, as somebody who understands the welfare of kids and being exposed to things that they shouldn't, and now in the internet world, how do you fix? I mean, that's the thing is I don't know how to fix the problem, but the first thing we have to do is say, kids are on these channels.
Yeah.
And me as a marketer, I've always taken that approach to say, hey, I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm a marketer. My job is to tell you where your audience is. I'm just going to tell you where they're at. It's not to say whether that is the long-term implications on their brains or anything like that. But I do know that audience is there, whether those platforms want to stop them or not.
And so, we also do a family report where we talk to mom and dads. And in that one particularly, it's one of the ones that Ryan and I really like, because we really want to drill down on values. We want to ask moms and dads about not only the values and their expectations for all of this, the toy companies and social media companies and content providers, et cetera, what their expectations are, who's helping them, who's not. Do they feel supported in that effort? And so you get the dichotomy of all of this conversation that you're bringing up. Parents recognize the strength and beauty and connectivity and information that their kids get exposed to the world. Right? There's probably no better place for a kid to see the world than say a nature clip or whatever it may be. Parents recognize the strength and why I love my kids connected, content that they get and the exposure they get to that content. The biggest fear that I have, content that they get and the things that they're exposed to, right? So it's all about the ways of finding those, Ryan mentioned the idea of those safe platforms. It's why one of the ways that the traditional companies who have engendered, who part of their main equity is that parents trust them. Part of the reason that they have a real leg up in this content and platform worlds, if they use it wisely, is to say, we can be the arbiter of, when you come to our name, we're going to give your kids something that they're going to like, that they're going to enjoy, that's going to be good for them, whether that goodness is just their entertainment or it's their knowledge or whatever it may be.
Yeah, trust, right? Like we have that trust because we understand. Yeah. It's like I always think about PBS and that trust factor that's still there, but maybe not being implemented as much as it could be. But that's what I grew up on. It was free. It was free, and so you had, the kids that didn't have a lot of money. That's what we were watching. Right, it was the Sesame Streets and the Mr. Rogers, and now access is God knows what's going on. But that's not the conversation. We can go down a rabbit hole of what's right or what's wrong of a kid being on there. They're on there, and you're right. And I especially when TikTok really started to grow, as I was like, what I'm seeing here is a lot of kids and creators with like creative, like being more creative. Like I've seen athlete kids that would never have like gotten in front of a camera or done a dance or tried to say, like I saw this surge of creativity where I was like, God, it's giving confidence. It's like, I believe in the world again. Like I'm like, the kids are going to be okay. But there's always that other lever You pull one, the other one's going to go the other way. So what is both the best part of that, and I see that with the child I'm raising, is also the scary part to the parent as well. So let's talk about, we've talked about a lot of already, or at least kind of hinted towards it. It seems like right now we are just pumping nostalgia like it's oil. Right? Like it's a sure bet if I'm a company and I have an IP, growing an IP in this climate is rough. Meaning in a splintered kind of environment where kids are watching a whole bunch of different things. It is tough to build a known entity brand that has the power of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Right. So it's an easy thing to come back to because parents, we know it. We have a lot of nostalgia, love for it. It reminds us of that. And it's something that we can drag our kids to and they can like. Do you see, what is your perception as seeing it from the kids' take of, is that nostalgia thing working with them? How are they seeing like a Barbie? Right? Like Barbie is just, their marketing prowess is like, I give them, they have the Deadpool marketing plan of everywhere all at once and collabs, and I'm all over the internet and it's been really fun to watch. But I think it's really interesting because they're not in the all girly girl spaces that you would traditionally see. They're showing a lot of history of the Barbie figure that has, God, I forget when Barbie came out, but she's got a lot of years on her. But like, what do you see those differences, or do kids pick up on that nostalgia play, and how do they see Barbie in 2023 versus me?
No, I think they do see it a little bit differently. I think that probably that nostalgia play probably appeals more towards the 15, 16, whatever year old than it does because, and this is one thing we actually saw during the pandemic of kids going back to that familiar. And Terence actually talked a little bit about this on our podcast, the KidSay Trend Tracker podcast. And anyway, I'll let him take the wheel a little bit on this.
Yeah, so from a social emotional developmental part, right? In times of crisis, people revert, right? They regress to a place where in a time period that they were successful in, that they navigated emotionally well. So during the pandemic, we saw it in the data. We saw it in kids' favorite shows and the things they did. We saw what we saw, and it was really interesting because it was both. We saw them revert back to, we saw like 9 and 10 and 11-year-olds saying that Bluey was their favorite show, right? A small number of them. Now, they know that's not a show aimed for them, but it's a safe place, right? Or them reverting back to one that they had emerged out of, and went back to because on a psychological level, it is a comfort, right? It's like kind of the equivalent of comfort food in that sense. We also saw at the same time, though, because they were home with parents and everyone was trapped watching, we saw an increase in the amount of kids watching Breaking Bad, as their favorite show or something that their parents were on a jag on. And
they're like, we're in the room
exactly.
with you.
So there's an element of that aspect of it. As far as that nostalgia piece is, I think, Joe, you're right on it. Development of an IP, if I've got a built-in audience already, particularly if I've got parents who are willing to talk about their legacy with this product and are predisposed to say, oh, that's cool, I'll take you to that movie or I'll buy you that product or I do whatever, it is, oh man, what do I do? Do I mine, go back to the mine where I know there's nuggets, or do I try to create a whole new mine? Do I make magic? And it's much easier to just go back to the mine and see what's there. See what we can extract and find it in a new way, develop it in a new area. It had worked in the past. Let's see if we put it in this new cultural moment and put it in a new way. And, Barbie, the way they're doing Barbie is not the way they did Barbie in 2010, 2000. No. 1990, 1970, whatever, right?
No, and I do think the big giant superhero push, right? Like we've seen that, and I've been waiting. I've been like, what's next? My bet is video game. I was said that way before the Marios and everything, but like it's another well to push into in toys.
Yes.
But I will say that something like a Mario, you're right in that it's super powerful. Those IPs are way more powerful than I think that even the brands kind of understood, especially now. And like you said, you can do a really creative, different take on that, but it's easier to do that. And I just read a really great article because I'm a huge fan of Pixar. And I'm also a huge fan of the way they think about creativity and the way that they bring creativity out in what they make. But you're seeing that machine that is Pixar. It's Pixar. But you're seeing it fault and have a tough time, not because creativity is bad and not because their system is wrong or they're doing it differently. But you look at Mario's opening versus Elemental opening, which that kind of missed it, right? Like and that's like a couple in a row. So it's really interesting to me to see how this changing and evolving landscape of the entertainment space also changes kind of, the things we're taking bets on and how idea bubbles up. Maybe you can't spend $200 million on a new thing. Maybe you have to start small on a little idea and build that up now in order for everybody to make money on it.
One of the interesting, I think maybe even better than Mario versus Elemental, is really interesting to look at Mario versus Lightyear, the Pixar movie that came out last summer. Lightyear did a very similar thing, right, to Elemental. But it was a known IP and still a very loved IP by kids and by, and it should have a nostalgia play. But there was something missing in that recipe for promotion, or what I know. When I finally sat down to watch it, when it came on Disney Plus, I sat down to watch it with my family, and I noticed, I was like, I had no clue that this storyline was supposed to be sort of the origin story of Buzz Lightyear. And it took probably 10 to 15 minutes in the movie to realize that. Had they, promoted it more like that, and even within their imagery, shared more about that, and that it was connected to, this is Buzz Lightyear from Toy Story, I think that was missed as well by kids. So there's an extent to which, you can veer off the sort of original course, and Mario's not a great example because every kid knows and loves Mario. He's been a top video game character in our trend tracker for years and years and years. Like, probably if we would have started in the 80s, obviously he would have been the top video game character back then. I mean, I would have voted for him as a kid back then.
Think about Nintendo in general, the just absolute gold mine. Like, you have Pokemon, you have Zelda, you have all these things that not only are, to me, it rivals on the Disney Star Wars, like those kinds of pieces. And I think it'll be interesting to watch those kind of evolve into less gaming and more in different spaces in that.
Yeah, within Pokemon universe, you have enough to spin off for years and years and years, right? But it's Mario was kind of like, finally, right? Finally, we got a Mario movie. That's there's been other, I think, attempts.
There was in the 90s. There was mine, and it was a weird time for movie. It was a weird time. That was like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle, the rubber outfits, and the really weird Super Mario Brothers movie.
So speaking of pivoting to entertainment spaces, Joe, this is an area that we have worked with you a lot on the idea of people recognizing the importance of the metaverse, and particularly Roblox, as a new play area, information area, entertainment area for kids in a way that adults might not get, but kids get because they've been in that space. They're there all the time. They don't use, you have said they don't use the same buzzwords. They don't use metaverse. They don't necessarily use the words AI. They're living them, right? Roblox is that place for them to get in there and not just play, to socialize, to experience concerts and sporting events and whatever it may be, and buy and customize and all those kind of things that we're doing in real world, right? In real life, that they're doing in that play space is another really area that I think more and more companies are coming to recognize. Oh, we need to provide the same kind of experiences the way we're thinking about products and properties and content. We need to do it in that space as well, because that's a huge area, and that's where kids are heading, and that's where they're spending a lot of their time. And if you really want to engage with kids in a way that they're going to see you as fun and with it and get them, that's a place you need to be.
Let's end on that conversation, because this one is really important. And hopefully, I'm being really cognizant of time, but I think this is, if you have a little bit of extra time, this is one I would love. I think there's a lot of marketers out there that are just trying to get their minds wrapped around Roblox. I'm lucky because I have a 9-year-old that's on it all the time. So I was very early being like, listen, I used to be on the telephone after school and we gossiping and listening to the radio and doing those things. And we would just sit on the phone and eat that, for hours. Now my daughter is doing basically the same thing, only she gets to do a lot cooler stuff where she's building stuff in Minecraft with her friend. She's, role playing, they're talking, they're putting on different, matching outfits on. And I'm like, guys, it's not exorbitantly new. It is just a better version of the same things we were doing when we were communicating. It's a more rich environment to be able to communicate in. I think brands especially are probably confused on the Roblox thing. Do you see any in the tracker information whenever kids talk about Roblox? Is anybody being like, man, I just love Nike on Roblox?
Yeah, they want Nike there. I think the difference that I see is kids are playing very specific games. They're playing Adopt Me. They're playing, and by the way, when we talk about kids being on Roblox, it is more dominantly girls. Boys are absolutely there, but it is more girls. But so they're playing games like Adopt Me and Brookhaven, and they're doing different obbies, and they're kind of, aware of, and they might have gone into, I can't remember what Nike called. I think it was Nike Land, or something like that on Roblox, where they might have seen the Vans game on Roblox. But if these brands can figure out how to integrate into where the kids already are on Roblox, integrate the brand into Brookhaven, and then on the Roblox side, if Roblox can figure out a little bit of, the most basic piece of interoperability, where I can take my avatar, wear that Forever 21 Barbie shirt that I got from my avatar, and then take that into Brookhaven or wherever the case may be, that's where it's really going to start. They're going to start connecting the dots with the audience. Right now, you don't have that happening. And so they're missing a little bit of something. I think the most interesting activation I've seen so far, one of the most interesting ones I've seen that kind of made sense and seemed to connect the dots, was that Barbie Forever 21 collab within Roblox, where they took and you said, okay, if you buy this here, it's almost, and I saw it as almost like a test market for a new way to do fast fashion. Instead of putting a few of these things out on the racks and seeing how they sell, and then going back and mass producing real quick and turning it and pushing it out in masses, you now have it in a virtual world, on a virtual platform, and our kids into this, and maybe just beyond their avatar. Then you can put it in the real store and say, hey, go buy this online or whatever. Obviously I'm not going to say that marketing message to kids. We all know, right? Whatever. But
right.
But all that to say, that interoperability, just at a bare minimum, which we're never going to be on. I mean, it seems like right now we're never going to be at Ready Player One status, which was kind of the frame of reference everyone was using for a while. But yeah, it's, from that level, I don't think kids are necessarily seeking out a brand shop necessarily, unless they feel connected to it because I'm a skateboarder and so I'm going to go check out Vans or whatever. So
yeah, and we saw, it's funny because you start seeing these waves, and I was there whenever Coca-Cola tried to do their own social network, right? Like whenever they're like, I'm not gonna go on Facebook. Like, what are you talking about? We're Coca-Cola. I'm gonna have my own social network, and that's that kind. It's so, you're gonna see the same things over and over again, right? Instead of saying, where's my audience and how do I integrate with inside of that? Here's a question, Terence, for you. Why, if I'm a marketer and I look at the amazing video games, like, to me, as somebody growing up with video games, I look at the graphics now of anything, and it's like Unreal Engine 5. It's magical, right? Like, it's scary. And you can go into these worlds and play these games, but I still see 11, 12-year-old kids that will choose to play Roblox over that. They're not, it's like kids not wanting to drive. It's like, they're like, I know it's over there. I know Madden's over there, but I'm going to go with this. As a marketer, you look at Roblox and you're like, what are you talking about? It's like the ugliest, worst graphic. I totally get when people are like, don't get it. What is it about it that kids are saying that, like, what is it about it that they don't get anywhere else? And why are they staying?
So that ties into something that you had said earlier about YouTube. It's about the unleashing of the creativity in a way that gives kids more control with their determining. It's not a predetermined way of doing it. It gives them that opportunity to do it. And you mentioned it with your daughter. to do it collaboratively in a fun kind of low stakes, right? It's not as, if somebody's in, an older kid in Red Dead Redemption or whatever, it's life and death kind of deal. Roblox is not. It's in the variety of games that Ryan mentioned, right? That's another thing that a lot of older marketers don't realize, that Roblox is not just a one entity game. It's a universe that has all sorts of different places and games and areas to go, because they've created the classic sandbox, right? That open sandbox where creators can go in there and find ways to develop kind of fun environments. And so it unleashes all those things in a really low stakes way that I don't necessarily, I'm committing to a level of Knights Templar. I'm not much of a gamer. I have to go where some of my kids went, whatever it may be. That I'm committed to a long-term relationship with seeing this thing through. Roblox is not that way, and particularly for younger kids, that can be a boon to. So I'm here and I can be there forever, but I'll do 80 things and not my one quest kind of deal.
Yeah, and that I think is super key, is that people don't quite understand that it's not, same with Minecraft, right? Like, it's not just one game. What they've done is built out. The same with like the App Store, if you're familiar with it. It's like they've kind of made developer tools to make it a lot easier to make video games, because people always wonder why brands don't get into video games as much, and it's because of the long lead times, and like it doesn't really fit for campaigns, and it's hard. It's really hard to make a video game, and we're making Roblox games isn't easy, but it gives people the tools to be able to play and make small things, small bets. And I remember the days, and this is still it. You have to chunk down $70 as a kid for you make a bet on a game. Yeah. Whew, I mean, that's a bet. Like I have gotten stung. I remember getting stung by that hard. And no matter what, now I'm the fan of that. Trust me, I am the biggest fan of this game, whether it be a stinker or not, because I had to do that. And I think Roblox allows that discovery, and then the frivolity of just like, let's jump in this game for a joke, or let's try this Nike or this one out for a time or two, but then we're going to go back to our Adopt Me's, or we're going to head back to our places, our Brookhavens, where we have like our clan, our group. And it's interesting because I don't think people understand the millions of games that are. It's like all you can eat buffet of, and you said obbies earlier, Ryan. What is an obby? So that
it's an obstacle. It's what kids call obstacle courses within Roblox.
I mean, this is where I amaze my daughter, because I'm like, kid, I've been playing obbies since Mario. Like I spent 8 hours on one jump on Mario. Like I got this. I got this. So it's different kinds of games too. So Roblox has obstacle course games where you do jumps and different things. They have role playing. They have story based games. They have all these kind of different models. And I do think you're totally right. Fortnite kind of has really paved the way on licensing and stuff like that. But understanding the way is to bring brands to the characters and to the game instead of making your own game, or having to create your own, feeling like you have to do your own thing when you're a brand. Interesting. Yeah. Any other thoughts on Roblox? On Roblox, on anything interesting? I know they're going big. They have to grow because they're public now. They need to get older. Are you seeing signs? Because I know you've seen signs before of the fall off at a certain age. Are we seeing now in this newest tracker these same age drop off? Or my question would be, how big of a challenge do you think they have ahead of them if they want to age up?
As the audience for that game, Roblox has been around for a while. It's just that marketers' view of it started turning to it when Metaverse, I think probably late 2021, Facebook changed the name to Meta. And so like all this buzz factor started happening around Metaverse. Roblox has been around for a while and kids have been there for a while. What we're seeing now is that, because as I said, it is a little bit more heavy on the girl than it is the boy in terms of who's using it and playing it more frequently. We do see it aging up a little bit into the teen girl age ranges. So for teen, in terms of our trend tracker, that means 12 to 15 years old. So yeah, but it's definitely moving up. I don't remember the exact place. I want to say it's like the number one. It's in the top 3 games for teen girls. And of course, they're not heavy gamers. So you have to take that with a grain of salt to some extent. But for boys, they're going to be playing the more core gaming games at that point.
And head to Roblox as their secondary or tertiary game, kind of like the snack metaphor we had said before. Roblox for them will be their snack. Their meal is going to be Call of Duty, the next iteration of that, or whatever it may be. Their snacky kind of thing will be, I'm not in the mood for anything intense. I think I'll go to Roblox and see what's happening over there and play around a little bit.
And we
see
do
who's hanging out. Yeah.
And we do anecdotally see, older teens, not older, but teens who are now going back and saying, I'll play that for fun. Right. Yeah. Because it's been long enough that we've seen. So that nostalgia piece, kind of like we hit on earlier about the content, it definitely is at play for games. So.
Hey, I want to, before we go, the time flies. It's ridiculous. I could talk to you guys forever. I'm super appreciative for the time. Before we get off, I did want to give you guys a chance to talk about some of the stuff you have going on at KidSay and the content space, which is really exciting. Tell us about the new podcast.
Yeah, we just launched our Trend Tracker podcast. And so what we're doing here, we do more in depth about and just go through, talk through what is the latest data that we've collected, and kind of give that nuance and that lens of developmental psychology behind what's happening in these trends, and our historical perspective of having all the data that we've collected over the years, where we talk about what does this mean in terms of Threads being a new social platform? Why does it matter? Does it matter? Are we actually trying to kill Twitter? Because does Twitter need to be killed? Right. And so just bringing that thinking and that broader spectrum of information and expertise to the table in a nice consumable format, of course, for our clients, and then also for anyone who wants to listen.
Our future clients.
Yes, ideally.
Listen, folks, these reports are not, and they shouldn't be. They're not free. And a lot of times we don't have the money that a lot of these bigger clients do, but this is your chance. I would say any kind of hints coming from these guys that you're going to be able to get those the scraps coming out and the high points is worthwhile times 10. And I'm so glad to be able to see you all start talking about that, just because I'm selfish. I just want to hear more of what's going on out there, and to keep up to date and see what kind of those high points are coming out of the tracker. So I'm going to be continuing to tune in, and great to be able to see you all there, and hopefully I'll jump on there sometime.
Yeah.
I'd love to come on and continue the conversation, because it is always, I always learn something. Again, I feel like there's things about kids that, as much as we like to say things change constantly, there is some anchor points of, hey, when you're in this age group, this is going to be a slam dunk. Of course, this is what they're going for. And I also see a lot of things of like, does this have future? Does this trend have a bigger push? I always look to the kids. Are the kids digging it? Then the adults are going to think it's pretty cool here in a couple of years, right? Like that's whether I'm in the kid space or not. That's why I think it's cool. I mean, Ryan, you showed me, hey, dude, shoes be like 3 months, 6 months or so before they were bought for exorbitant amount of money from Crocs, So it's an enlightening content, whether you be in a marketing space or an investor space or whatever. I think those trends are pretty valuable.
Yeah. I just want to know if you ever got the Pit Viper sunglasses, Joe.
Oh yeah, like I have so many pair on Roblox only, though. They're only on my Roblox character. It's a safe place to be able to cosplay. Like
Right.
I'm telling you, there we have so. If you want to understand how big that digital products and stuff's going to be, whether it be an NFT or not, I don't care about nobody cares about the plumbing. What they care about is identity, right? And so I am looking forward to working with you guys, continuing in the future to really kind of say, yeah, like I want to be identified as having rep and being cool. And same reason I have Jordans, same reason I wear this kind of brand.
You got that Riz, Joe.
It's the Riz.
And there's been just enough. Like you get to use these words with your kids and actually not be not like
really embarrassed them.
Yeah, because it could get bad. But you guys, if you know an obby, like you're halfway.
They wish you were an NPC. You're a non-playable character. That's what they're hoping. No, please.
See, that's another thing. Is like gamers are a little turned off by all this metaverse stuff because we've been doing this for like 20 years. Okay, come on. Guys, so good to see both of you. Everybody check out the KidSay Trend Tracker podcast. Anywhere you can hear podcasts, and you get to hear these guys.
We're on Apple. We're on YouTube. If you want to actually look at our faces, I don't blame you if you don't. But and then we're also on Spotify. And if you want notifications, of course, you can go on KidSay.com and sign up on our newsletter.
Awesome, you guys. Thank you so much for joining us, and to everybody out there. It's been another awesome pop marketing podcast, and I will see you fools later. Thanks so much.
Sounds good.